Scott Stahmer, graduate of the class of 1977, and I'm currently the senior production editor at the Villages Daily Sun in the Villages, Florida.
So, being back at BHS all these years, what was it like walking into your old high school for the first time?
Well, I'm amazed, first of all, at the growth here. You know, how much everything, not so much growth in the number of students, because we were close to 3,000 students at that time too, but just how everything has been, you know, redone and modernized. And you know, when I walked in for the first time today, you know, I figured I'd be able to find my way around pretty well, but it didn't happen. You know, but it brings back a lot of memories, of course. Good memories, you know, some not so good. But on the whole, you know, great to be back here. You know, and great to be part of this tonight. You know, I felt like a little like this was a real superstar lineup, and I felt a little like I was maybe like Danny DeVito in the lineup of Jack Nicholson's and Tom Cruise's and Meryl Streep's. But regardless, you know, proud to be back.
Is there anything specifically that when you walked in, you were just completely taken by surprise?
No, I don't think so. You know, I think one thing, when I was in school, we could basically almost come and go when we wanted to. You know, it wasn't unusual for me to go home. You know, I lived within walking distance of the high school. So I went home for lunch and came back. I think things have really changed in that regard. You know, now to get in, you know, we had to go through security and you know, do all that. One thing is that you're doing things like this now, because we didn't have this when I was in high school. You know, and we didn't have like alternative forms of media back then. You know, social media, you know, and things like that. You know, our social media back then was gossip and the grapevine. So that's been a big change. Yeah.
What would you say is the biggest piece of advice that you have for current BHS students who want to pursue journalism as a career?
Okay. I think first of all, have a passion for what you're doing. Don't get discouraged by some of what you hear about the business, you know, dying. I think there are always going to be opportunities for people who can write and people who can tell stories. I think people read newspapers just as avidly as they always have, but it's done in different forms. You know, maybe it's done online now, you know, and not the paper newspaper that you hold in your hand. So I think you know, pursue that dream. And one thing I would also say is that if you are a good writer, it will open up many avenues for you. You know, I know of someone who you know, decided to leave newspapers and is making a very good living now as a writer for the things you read inside Hallmark cards. You know, so there are many ways you can go. And you know, last but not least, you know, find yourself some very good mentors who can you know, help, who you can learn from. And these mentors are not going to be people who, you know, necessarily tell you what you want to hear, but you are never going to learn unless you know what you aren't doing right, and you know what you can't do. You know, a good mentor will point that out and encourage you at the same time.
If you don't mind me asking, what would you say is the biggest lesson that you've been offered by a mentor?
I think, boy, there have been so many of them, you know, over the years. But I think one thing is, you know, we have highs and lows in the newspaper business. You know, one day we'll have like a great newspaper where we've done everything right, The next day we might have a lot of mistakes in there, bad headlines, things like that. And I think what I learned from mentors was always be professional about things like that. Don't get too high on the good days or too low on the bad days. Because there's always going to be another day, and you have to live to fight another day. You know, we are going to make mistakes, and the most important thing is to learn from them.